Welcome everyone to Voices in Leadership, the Leading Age Virginia podcast. I am your host, Melissa Andrews, President and CEO of Leading Age Virginia, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome two students to our podcast this morning. We have Claire and Nahshon, who I'm going to give a chance to introduce themselves in a minute. And I was just sharing with them that we're recording this first thing in the morning. I am a little bit frazzled as a working mom getting started. So my perspective is probably a little bit different than theirs. So I am looking forward to hearing their refreshing perspectives on being students in our field, what they're looking forward to coming into this space, and what we as leaders can do better to create healthy cultures. So welcome to you both. And Claire, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Claire, and I've been working with Leading Age Virginia for, a few months now, and it's been such a great experience just learning more about the field and people that are so excited about it. And my undergrad is in psychology, and during my time there, I realized there wasn't a lot of focus on older adults in most studies. Like their cutoff point was like 65, and they wouldn't include anybody else. So there was like a huge population that just being ignored. So I wanted to hone in and focus on that and bring attention to it. But yeah, that's kind of what brought me to gerontology, and I've really been enjoying it, and I'm graduating in less than a month. So it's very exciting, very hopeful.
Awesome. Thanks, Claire. Over to you, Nahshon.
Well, I'm Nahshon. I'm a second-year student at Virginia Commonwealth University, pursuing my master's in health administration. I got interested in long-term care. I'm just going to leave it at that because of my first job I had as a teenager. I worked at an assisted living facility, and being West African in our culture, we don't put our elderly family members in assisted living facilities. I didn't understand that until I started working at one and really getting to talk to the residents. And like Claire said, hearing how a lot of them feel forgotten, how a lot of them feel, in lack of better words, disrespected. And I want to be part of the change so people get to enjoy their later stages of life.
Nahshon, I don't know what the statistic is. I was just finishing David Brooks' book, How to Get to Know People, or of course I can't remember. I just finished the book this morning. But there's a statistic around what you just referenced about people in other cultures, their family members age with them in their home. And it really is, an American concept. I mean, I think there's some European cultures where people move into nursing home settings or long-term care settings. Could you just share a little bit more that's not what you were used to, you said, from a West African perspective? So why are you then drawn to this? Is it that familial, cultural, like you want to take what you've known and bring that into these formal settings?
Essentially, I wanted to work in an environment or create an environment where my grandma would like to live if she was still with us. But yeah, being West African, it was almost looked down upon to even bring it up to the elders, just because they have a perception that this place is run down, it's very institutionalized, it's wake up at this time, eat at this time, do these activities. You lose that freedom that they had their entire lives. And taking that away from someone who has way more life experience and way more to offer than you do at this point in your life is a big turn down. A big turn down.
Yeah, Claire, as a gerontologist, could you talk about, your perspective on, ageism and how that pervades, our society, and how that influences, long-term care settings and other settings where older adults live and interact?
Yeah, I think really the long-term care facilities kind of vary based on what you can afford, and there's such a huge difference in quality of them. I've worked as a personal care aide for 2 years since I moved out here to Richmond, and I've really seen just the huge difference. And I really do understand why some people are afraid to move to these facilities, because they feel like the people that work there don't care, they're just there for a paycheck. And seeing how hard people have to work to be able to afford to live in the long-term care setting, especially, caregivers, historically underpaid. And, myself, if I've worked, like 2 12-hour shifts in a row or something like that, like I just feel myself, losing that gumption that I started like the first day with. So like I really understand why the residents, feel that lack of care, but I also understand from the caregiving side, it's not necessarily gonna be a lack of care, it's just like so depleted.
Yeah.
But I really do feel hopeful in that there are a lot of people in the field that care and are going into it with that mindset. And I just really hope that, conditions for workers improve, and that'll really, the residents will see that as well.
Yeah. Nahshon, from your perspective, how do you think you'll be able to influence cultures in those type of settings when you become an administrator in this field?
Coming in with a smile on my face every day. But in all honesty, I think it's more so realizing that we are going to this building and then leaving to go back to our lives. We're also going to someone's home. And you should treat people in their home how you would want to be treated in your home. So that saying about leaving things at the door, even though that's nearly impossible because we all have things going on outside, just realizing that hospitality aspect of the job, realizing someone's letting you in their doors and you should treat them how they would like to be treated.
So let's flip it for a second, Nahshon. What's most important to you for a workplace culture? Excuse me, if I was, if let's say, I was going to be hiring you, what would you be looking for in somebody like me as a supervisor? What would you be looking for the culture? What would an organization have to do to recruit and retain a young professional like yourself?
Definitely someone that's innovative and up to date. You see a lot of people getting older, you see people living healthier lives, and being able to incorporate that in someone that's living in that facility's lifestyle. I would also look for a sense of community, realize someone or a leader that shows that they understand that it's not this department, and this department separately. All departments work together for the benefit of each individual resident.
Claire, as someone who does work with you day to day, what do I have to do to retain a rock star like you? What are you looking for in any organizational culture?
I mean, I think already I do feel, so valued here, not only in my opinions on, projects that we're working on, but just like how I'm doing day to day. Like I really feel that, everybody here really cares, and they see what I'm capable of, and they want to give me tasks that they, think that I can do. And I think just having people that believe in you and, want to help boost you up and, give you an opportunity, I think that's the biggest thing, because, nobody wants to get stuck in the position. You want to have the opportunity to grow. And I do feel like that's already, kind of being offered for me here. So I really appreciate that.
She just had to say that. So Claire, what if you could change anything in terms of just if you had I don't know, if you were a fairy and you could sprinkle fairy dust and you could really make some incredibly huge changes, either to impact ageism, to impact aging services, the way people are aging, the way, long-term care settings or anything, what would be some big changes that if you could just like this impact, what would they be?
I think probably number one would really just to be, making sure that everybody working with older adults are getting paid a living wage, so they don't have to work, 2 3 shifts in a day. Like I worked with some people that were doing 24 hours, and that's just, you can't really manage that. So I think, improving conditions for workers first will improve the way the residents feel. But I really think just a huge thing to tackle is just the mindset that a lot of younger people my age have about older adults, that they're kind of stagnant in their opinions. They're kind of holding us back maybe as a society. And, I have to, just kind of put a stop to that, even in like my own conversations with my friends, like, oh, old ladies and their opinions. I'm like, well, those old ladies were the ones that were fighting for us to get our right to vote and, advocating for us. So I think it's just like a mindset shift that also needs to take place.
What about you, Nahshon? If you could just make incredible changes overnight based on some of the challenges that we have in this field, what would you change first?
Going to Claire's point, definitely the working conditions, working in various departments. That's one of the main things that's the same. A lot of people feel overworked or they feel run down because the shifts do get long, they do get tedious. I would also want to change the post perception, like she said, and make people realize the value that the elderly have. That's one thing at the location I was interning at over the summer did before the pandemic. They had a program where they could mentor middle and high school students, either through the tablets, so that includes a technological advancement aspect of it, but also shows them that they still have things they can teach. They're not just there to exist and take up your time or our time.
So how do we, raise the visibility of this field to others that, your friends, other students? How do we, I know that, for every, 20 people who are in the healthcare administration master's program, there's maybe one who's interested in aging services. How do we get more gerontologists who want to be, in settings, not you, Claire, we want to keep you here, or interested in policy work? How do we recruit more professionals to this field, whether it be the administrator role or, in marketing or IT or HR? There's so many opportunities to work in aging services. How do we raise the visibility, Nahshon?
I would say starting earlier. I didn't even know I could pursue a field like this until the first day of my MHA program. And it wasn't my MHA program that let me know about this path, because they're really set on teaching us how to become CEOs and leaders in different ways. It was because there's a current student that did go down this field, and she talked to us one day at a site visit. And it kind of made me recall how I felt working at my initial assisted living facility. But in ways to market, I would say social media, people can't go more than maybe 10, 20 minutes aside if they're in a meeting without their phone. So
Yeah.
really marketing towards the younger generation, starting maybe even as early as high school, letting them know this is a path they can take. And going back to Claire's point, showing them the value and letting them know it's not just, oh, bitter elderly people, this, then third, or any other negative perception they may have. Really let them know that these are people just like you. You will be their age at one point, and it's a beautiful thing to witness and work with.
Mhm.
Would you add to that, Claire?
I mean, that was really beautifully said, definitely. And I think really there's just so much that's already being done. Leia's already kind of going to high schools and kind of talking to people about it. And when I graduated with a bachelor's in psychology, I had never heard the word gerontology, so
Yeah.
I had no idea it existed. I just knew I wanted to kind of keep going. So when I happened across it, I was like, okay, that sounds really interesting. I guess I could try it out. And that's kind of how I fell into it, just by happenstance. And I think really just like letting people know earlier on, because, there's so many people that want to be a nurse or something, in that field, but don't even know that working with older adults is really an option. So yeah, just raising visibility, and definitely, like you were saying, with social media as well. I have been seeing a lot of like TikTok videos of people in assisted living facilities doing the trends and things, and I think that's just, one way to kind of get out there. And I think it's really fun and interesting for younger adults and, teenagers as well. So yeah, there's a lot we can do to raise visibility.
Although we might just switch to Reels, what with Congress seeking to ban TikTok.
Right.
So to start,
About that.
yeah, that's gonna be one challenge that we have for sure. So looking forward, what excites you the most? I mean, you've got long careers ahead of you in this field. What excites you the most about the work that's yet to come?
Oh no, okay, I can take it. Probably working with people that actually want to do what they're working on. I feel in effect of the pandemic was people aren't here for a paycheck or because it's an easy job or because it's just a job until they can land another job. You really have to be passionate about what you're doing before you get into whatever it is that you're doing. So once you have passion, that's where innovation starts. Like I said in the previous question, people are getting or living healthier lives, they're living longer lives, and being able to incorporate that into what long-term care exactly is and how that looks for us. And even looking towards the hospital aspect of it, a lot of hospitals are investing more into the communities and pursuing that population health initiative. So they're dipping into the home care path. They're really trying to set up pre-interventions so people don't get sick. And it's just a really exciting time if you want to use your mind.
Yeah,
How about you, Claire?
definitely. I think, there's so much to be excited about. There's so many changes that are already happening. Cures, and preventative measures for dementia and things, and really just, educating the public on, ageism and how we can kind of stray from it, intergenerational contact, and really just get more people involved. And there are some communities that are already doing, like a preschool daycare situation as with the assisted living. So I think things like that would really just, start early, realizing that older adults, there's so much to learn from them, and they deserve the same respect that anybody else would. So just keep promoting that.
So last night at the dinner table, so I mentioned I have a second grader. So you can imagine Taylor Swift is very big in our house. And listen, I'm a self-proclaimed Swiftie. I love the new album. And she asked me what Taylor Swift was worth. So of course we asked Alexa what Taylor Swift was worth, and it's like, $900 million. She makes $92 million a year. And so Eliza said to me, Mommy, do you think one day you'll do as much as Taylor Swift? And so I sat back and I thought, and I said, so, Taylor Swift is awesome, right? She's amazing. I mean, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, amazing, right? Stands on stage, does that, can do it for, 3 hours. I can't do anything like that for 3 hours. And I said, but I don't know what Taylor Swift does. And by the way, rock the vote. She's gotten so many people to register to vote. Incredible. She's also 34 years old. She's got a long way to go, right? I said, but let me tell you what Mommy did today, right? And I shared with her that the team, unfortunately Claire couldn't be with us, but the team went yesterday to one of our member communities to honor 3 nurses who had put out a fire recently that erupted in the laundry room of their community. They put the fire out before the fire department got there. And so we gave them heroism awards. And Eliza sat back and she said, I wonder what awards Taylor Swift has given anybody. Like, she's gotten a lot of awards, but I wonder if she's given anybody. Mommy, that sounds important that you did that. And I said, yeah, not everybody who makes a big impact is on stage. Right? And so I just share that because it's like that shift in perspective, because we're talking about like impacting kids who are on social media. Everybody thinks they're going to be an influencer. Everybody thinks that they're going to be the next Taylor Swift. I mean, I don't think nobody thinks they're going to be the next Taylor Swift. There isn't going to be a next Taylor Swift. But, it's like, how do you get through all of the noise, right? I mean, your generation has grown up with technology. I feel like this younger generation, there's even more noise in front of them. So how do you think that we penetrate that? How do you think we get through that? How do we get, I guess part of it is like, how do we get your generation to go to career days, to get in front of elementary kids and middle school kids? Because I always think like my generation, they're like, yeah, I can't relate to you at all. So I guess what are some other ways that we can get kids to get excited about this field? Is it bringing them to communities? Is it?
Yeah, honestly, I think that just getting them involved, maybe they'll help with some bingo or something like that. Uh, yeah, I think really just getting them involved and thinking about, the work that other people do for other people, not just working to work, but seeing the good that they're doing would have a really positive impact on their mindset.
I would say embrace the noise. The continuum of care starts before they're born and it continues until the day it's time for them to move on. So making people understand that, and whether that's partnering with different programs that teach people in different stages of their careers, starting younger, the the potential is endless. I like to look at
Yeah.
it.
So mentoring has been a really important part of my career. Both I've had incredible mentors and I've had the privilege, I currently have the privilege to mentor some other people. Has mentoring been important to each of you? And do you see that being important to your future? And if so, what do you look for in a mentor?
So I've had some mentors at BCU and, some of them were teachers that I just really clicked with and, I think I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, so when I turn something in, there's always like a level of anxiety. But when I get good feedback back, I'm like, oh, maybe I can do this, or maybe I am, really thoughtful in my responses, but I think just having people that believe in me and, see what I can do, maybe when I don't always see it, I think that's just so important. And, my confidence has only grown since being in the program. So, I'm just, again, very hopeful.
What about you, Nahshon?
I definitely have had a couple mentors. Like Claire said, ones that tend to believe in you, the ones that work best, but ones that have a lot of experience, either just in life in general, because you need advice in your life that affects your professionalism, but also experience in the field of itself. If I was looking for a mentor related to this, I would want one that has either worked for a long time or one that has worked in both state-run facilities and the top-notch Golden Gate facilities. That way you can kind of give a perspective of both. You can see how people really, really want to live when they get to that age, and you can see the issues that arise from not having the necessary funds to live in a place like that. But seeing how you can replicate that environment the best way you can and bring that joy that you saw at the more, I don't want to say expensive, the more affluent place to the place that they're just there maybe because they don't have anyone to take them in or they just can't afford it.
One of the things we talk about from the association perspective is that, we've been blasting Leading Age Virginia. We've been around for 50 years. Leading Age National is a few years older than us. And, so for decades, we've enjoyed membership, right? Organizations, retirement communities, assisted living, nursing home, adult day, affordable housing, go on, have joined us. And there's always been, I shouldn't say always, there has been chatter recently that the next generation won't want to join us. That they're going to find their education elsewhere because there's so much online, that they're going to find their collegiality and their networking elsewhere. I guess a question, you've both been exposed to Leading Age, and I guess my question to you is, do you think that is a false assumption? Do you think that we should take that seriously? Is there more the associations should be doing as, we're seeing generational shifts in leadership? What is it that the associations should do to make you want to be member as, future leaders of this field?
I don't think that membership numbers would dwindle at all. If anything, I feel like they could increase just because people are living longer and people our age at least are going to get to that point maybe the next decade or so where you have to make decisions for your parents. And with the inflation in this country, maybe they consider an assisted living facility, but then they have to do research into it. And then that kind of leads to people like me where younger and younger you work in these environments, you see what's wrong and then you want to create change. As for anything else, I think it's just more reaching out and explaining the importance of it.
Mhm, mhm. How about you, Claire? You've been on this side of the table now, working in the association. What do you think? Is there anything we should be doing differently, more of?
I think, a lot of our members are, communities, and facilities, but I think really like a good push would be towards family caregivers because, just being like the receptionist for a bit, I get a lot of phone calls and a lot of times people are just looking for something for a family member and they want all these resources. And I think, really pushing that membership on more people in the community without them, working in a community, I think is probably something that would be important. But I don't think that numbers would dwindle. I think everybody appreciates, the opportunity to network and meet people across, different continuums of care. So I don't think that they would dwindle. I think, we are always adapting in how we're reaching out to people, and I think that's going to pay off.
So, last question for each of you, and I've so enjoyed the conversation. Unless there's something I haven't asked that you want to say, I'll give you a chance for that too. But if you could give advice to the leaders, and you can define leaders any way you want. So you could define the leaders as those, the Board of Leading Age National. We're in it. I don't know if you heard, but we're in an election year. We're about to elect a new president. And there's a lot of federal chatter, right? The new nursing home proposed 80-20 rule came down. Yesterday, last 2 days. They blur, right? It's only Wednesday. There's a lot of negative talk around nursing homes at the federal level. There's just a lot of talk. We know rampant ageism, but if you could just give advice to leaders in our field around how we should talk about aging services in this country, what we should be thinking about. If you could be in charge, what would you say? If you could change the narrative?
I think I would just, try to promote, more respect for the older adults. I think they just kind of get lumped together and, just not talked about very highly and, they are just kind of dwindling and they're, not able to work anymore, so they're not contributing to society, which is a load of, what, but, I think really just, even just the way that they're talking about their own aging, I think says a lot. Just talking about aging as if it's something that's, it's a natural process, it's a natural part of life, and, the people that are, need our help deserve way more respect than they've been given, and, just changing that language, I think would be a big start.
Awesome. Nahshon?
Let's say make it beautiful. I think aging of itself, people look at it negatively. They get all just like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I can't do that anymore. So changing the perspective that, like Claire said, one has of aging itself makes people look at it as like, oh, this is a beautiful thing. And then you look at people that have aged gracefully, you say, oh, you're not just in the way, you're beautiful. And we still care about you and you still provide so much value to the communities and to the world. So explaining that, but also, I guess, appealing to everyone's sense of why they're in healthcare in general. Some people are here for empathy. You do have a very few that are still in it for their own purposes, but appealing to someone's individual values can really help them recognize the importance of it.
Is there anything I haven't asked or anything that you haven't said that you want our listeners to know before we end our time together?
I think just going off of what Nahshon was saying, I really, appreciate what he said about, aging is beautiful and, sometimes we as a society kind of get frustrated by the things we can't do anymore. But I think, focusing on what we can do is so important. I always think about my dad when I think about that because he's like, a tennis champion and has been all his life. and he's recently retired, but he's had some shoulder issues. So, he's switching to pickleball, he's switching to hiking, like he's doing all the active things that he loves, but just tweaking them.
Yeah.
So that way he's still enjoying things, and he can't kayak, so he's getting a sailboat, so he's just adapting and, doing it so gracefully. I think has just been such, for myself, it's made me feel better about getting older and the opportunities that I'll have and continue to have as I go on.
I love that. I mean, that translates so much to just leadership as well, adaptive leadership. I mean, things are gonna come at us, challenges, obstacles, and that's inevitable. That's just inevitable, whether it's regulation, whether it's shrinking reimbursement, the workforce challenges that we have. But as leaders, we have to be able to adapt, as you said, Nahshon, innovate. We have to remember our values. We have to remember why we are doing this. We have to remember for whom we are doing it, and keep both our residents and our team members at the center of everything. And if we can adapt around that, we know that we will be able to carry our missions forward. And I know with the two of you being dedicated to this field, we're gonna be able to keep doing this work. So I so appreciate the conversation. You turned my morning around. Thank you. Nahshon, was there anything that you wanted to end on?
Yes, don't knock it until you try it. You can learn a lot about yourself just working in this field in general. I've talked to certain populations and they've given me advice that I apply to my daily life. So you can learn not just a lot about the field, but a lot about how you should switch things up in your life to make it more eventful and beautiful.
Thank you so much to both of you for joining me on Voices in Leadership. That ends our time, but I know that our listeners got so much out of this conversation because I did. I appreciate you, and I look forward to following your journeys in this field. So thank you.
Thank you.
You.